EVO.
Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised. From the outside looking in, as that all too familiar trope goes, Anna Walshe had it all. She was in her late 30s, married to a loving husband, Brian, and they enjoyed a busy household with 3 gregarious, wonderful little boys who were 2, 4, and 6. In 2022, the Walshe family was living in an upscale neighborhood in the coastal community of Cohasset. This is about 20 miles away from Boston. Anna had met Brian in 2008 when she was working as a reservation manager at a hotel in Massachusetts. But Anna had always been destined for great things. She was bright and passionate with an infectious lust for life energy, which was also balanced with a hardworking, practical intelligence. She had the sturdy and steady mindset of someone who had emigrated to the United States in 2005 from Belgrade. Anna would go on to earn a master's certificate in hospitality management from Cornell University. And over the years, brick by brick, she was building her American dream. But back to 2022. It was an epic year. She had gotten a job as a real estate executive for a billion-dollar company. She was earning more than $300,000 a year. But behind her beautiful capability, her endearing willingness to love openly, to value kindness and care while she worked hard and continued to dream big, Anna was also wearing a mask. A heavy one. The weight of it had worn her down, because throughout her marriage, she had always had to be the strong one, and Anna didn't share her troubles with many people. But just after Christmas, as the year was winding down in 2022, she unburdened herself to her best friend in a way she'd never done before.
What was her demeanor that night?
So that night, because of what happened after Christmas, she was really upset. She was kind of breaking down because everything had been really hard, which Anna was always a very strong person, so that was very unusual for her. And she was just really upset about so much. She had really hit a breaking point. And we talked about a lot of things because she was so upset. She was primarily upset about her and Brian's relationship, about being so far away from the kids, and feeling like she was upset having found out that the federal case was delayed, or she thought that the federal case was delayed by Brian, and that she just really wanted to be with her kids. Their marriage had been really strained for a long time, and she told me how upset she was and how frustrating that was, and how she was really at a breaking point.
Had you seen her like this before?
No.
After that girls' night out on December 29th, Anna went home to be with Brian and their boys. And of course, she continued to smile for the camera, as she always had for family photos, with her husband Brian's arm slung over her shoulder, with his mask cemented in place. But he was much better at hiding his emotions, always referring to Anna's successes as a wee thing. Her new position, her big job, that was a wee thing. You see, Anna had become the reluctant breadwinner for the family, and Brian opted to stay home to care for the boys. And while Anna was exhausted, constantly traveling for work, Brian was festering. A master manipulator who at core was and always had been a petulant, entitled brat. He was 47 and quickly realizing he was losing control of his successful and beautiful wife. Inside, there was a churning in his belly, a slow simmer of anger and bubbling entitlement. These emotions were now a roiling boil of envy, something the ancient Greeks knew all about. because they believed that the emotion of envy caused the body to overproduce excess bile, yellow, thick, and toxic, and that when this bile was combined with envy, that mix imprinted a sickly greenish hue on the envious one. Now, the poet Sappho manifested this greenish hue in her poem on jealousy, capturing her protagonist as she watches the object of their affection being intimate with someone else. She wrote, "He must feel blooded with the spirit of a god to sit opposite you and listen and reply to your talk, your laughter, your touching, breath-held silences. But what I feel, sitting here and watching you, so stops my heart and binds my tongue that I can't think what I might say to breach the aureole around you there. It's as if someone with flint and stone had sparked a fire that kindled the flesh along my arms and smothered me in its smoke-blind rush, paler than summer grass. It seems I am already dead, or a little short of dying." Shakespeare, too, paired the color green with envy in his work multiple times. Here, the character Iago warns Othello, "Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on." And in modern times, in the 1990s, who can forget the climax of the movie Seven, when a serial killer, green with envy, murders the protagonist's pregnant wife in an attempt to get the hero, played by Brad Pitt, to punish him for his very own sin of envy, which he does to manipulate the hero into murdering him to prove his final sin, wrath.
Put the gun down.
I saw you with the box. What was in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
No, what's in the box? Not till you give me the What's gun. in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
He just told you.
You lie! You're a fucking liar! Shut up!
That's what he wants. He wants you to shoot him.
No! No! You tell me that's not true. That's not true.
Become vengeance, David.
Ah, she's all right. You tell me.
Become wrath.
Tell me she's all right!
Murderous suspect, David.
No!
Just throw it all away, you know.
No!
She begged for her life to take it.
Shut up!
She begged for her life.
Shut up.
And for the life of the baby inside of her.
Shut up!
He didn't know.
Give me the gun, David. David, if you kill him, he will win.
Oh, God! Oh, God! Oh!
Welcome back to Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon. You're listening to episode 166, The Green-Eyed Monster.
Because it was getting late, and I didn't want to overstay my welcome. I believe he said around 9:30, because they were waking up early for the kids.
And so, after hearing this, what did you decide to do?
I said I'd better go.
About what time was it when you left the home that night?
I'm going to say it was probably around 1:30.
That's Jem, as he describes his wonderful New Year's Eve celebration with Anna and Brian at their home. That night, they commemorated the occasion by using a black Sharpie to write personal messages on a champagne box. Here's what Brian had written on one panel of the box.
Jem, Anna, Brian, New Year's Eve 2023, to the best triumvirate ever. Love, Brian, and then the date, December 31st, 2022.
Jem wrote this on his side of the box.
No place I'd rather be but here, New Year's Eve 2022. Jem.
And yet Anna, as she always did, captured the moment perfectly with her signature warmth, passion, and love.
Wow, 2022, what a year. And yet, we are still here and together. Let's make 2023 the best one yet. We are the authors of our lives. Courage, love, perseverance, compassion, and joy. Love, Anna.
Jem left the Walsh home feeling happy and hopeful. When he hugged the couple goodnight at 1:30 a.m. on New Year's Day 2023. It wasn't until a few days later, on January 4th, that Jem's high hopes would be forever dashed.
It was mid-morning. I received a call from Brian, and he said, "Have you heard from Anna?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, Anna's been missing." And I said, "How could she be missing?" And he said that she left that morning after I had left. She left a few hours later. I think he said around 6:30, that she got in an Uber and left.
And did he say why she left?
Yes, he said that she had a work emergency.
Now, hearing this, did you ask him anything about that?
I did.
What did you ask him?
I was incredulous. I said, "What work emergency could there have been on New Year's Eve that, was commercial property? What could it be?" I said, "Listen, did you guys have an argument or something? Did you have a fight?"
And what was his response to that statement, sir?
His response was, I do remember this vividly as well. His response was, "No, did it look like we had an argument? You were there."
And what did you say to that?
I didn't know what to make of it. I was in shock. So, I said, you've got to call the police, and we've got to alert everybody. We've got to let our community know, and we've got to find her.
This Wednesday was January 4th, so 3 days after Anna, according to Brian, had left their home early in the morning to handle a work emergency. Now, not hearing from your spouse for 3 days would absolutely be a cause of concern for most people. But Brian and Anna were in a unique situation. Earlier in the year, Anna had started that awesome new job, which was in Washington, D.C. The family had plans to move there from Massachusetts, but those plans continued to be delayed. And in the meantime, Anna had bought a 4-bedroom townhome in D.C. and was splitting her time between there and Massachusetts. A grueling commute. And lonely, too. She was in D.C. by herself in the townhouse during the week, and on the weekends, she would fly home to Massachusetts to be with her family. That morning and into the afternoon of July 4th, Brian continued to reach out to Anna's coworkers and friends to see if anyone had heard from her. And no one had. In fact, when coworkers and friends went to check Anna's townhouse in D.C., her car was in the garage and nothing looked out of place. One of the people that Brian spoke to was the head of security at Anna's work. He was a former Secret Service agent, and he had some strong words for Brian about his missing wife.
Very quickly, when I started asking about Anna, his demeanor changed. He got very emotional, unintelligible, to the point where I had to ask him to calm down so I could just understand what he was saying.
And was he able to do that?
He was, yes.
And how long do you think he was unintelligible for?
It was quick, 20 to 30 seconds at most. He was quickly able to reestablish his composure and regain the conversation.
The head of security insisted that Brian contact the Cohasset Police Department in Massachusetts immediately. They had already filed a missing persons report for Anna in D.C. It was just after 6:30 when investigators from the Cohasset Police Department came to Brian and Anna's home to discuss her disappearance. Now, this interview took place in the dining room of the home, and you can hear the 3 boys bouncing around in the background. Brian explained to the police that he hadn't heard from Anna since around 6 a.m. on New Year's Day, that she'd left the house early that day because she'd been called into work for an emergency.
She was scheduled to leave Tuesday morning early. And then she said that there was an emergency at work, one of the buildings, and that she had to leave early in the morning.
Brian also told police that their eldest son, 6-year-old Thomas, had said goodbye to his mother before she left the house that morning.
She woke me up around 6 and said she was going. She came down. I guess Thomas heard her and came down, and she said, "I have to go." And he said, "I love you very much." And she said, "I love you very much." And then he said that she left. He got in a taxi, but I don't think he saw it because it was further down. But if you want to talk to him, but he said it was a taxi, and I was like, "Can you describe the car?" He's like, "Well, I really didn't see it, Dad." So I was like, "Okay." So he was coming down to get, I think,
Maybe Anna said taxi.
Maybe she's my driver, but I know that she was not driving. There's no way she was driving a vehicle. There's like zero possibility of that.
Brian also said that his wife had been under a lot of pressure at her job.
Like the last couple of weeks, she seemed like under pressure at her job. But she mentioned, even Jem spoke about it today, there were a lot of things she didn't like doing or she's not good at. So that seemed to be on her mind. She spoke to me a few days before saying she wanted to see a psychiatrist. And I was like, yeah, we're apart. It's been difficult for all of us.
He also shared that his wife had been away from the family a lot lately, which had been hard on everyone.
But the schedule has been like that for the past few months, like where she's been having to cut back on family time. And it's been difficult for all of us, definitely.
Sure. When exactly how many months ago did she start the job, or when did the whole new arrangement?
Yeah, it's been a while. We've been here for 9 months almost. And I was like, all right, well, we'll do this. It shouldn't take long. And then, things progressed. So that was not the best.
Okay. I can imagine that's got to be tough.
Yeah. But, the only problems that we had in our marriage were that we weren't spending time together.
It was at this point that the detective asked Brian to go over the timeline again.
I didn't see the clock, but it was dark outside still. So, okay. And that's when she came down. Then she does the final cleans up and stuff like that.
Okay. Did you sleep through that whole morning routine?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I used to get up, and she was like, "You're gonna be rude. The boys are gonna get up." So I was like, "You're right." But she comes and kisses me.
Okay.
It's around the 30-minute mark when the detective gets down to it. A young mother going missing and leaving her 3 children. He's the closest person to her. Of course he's going to be a person of interest.
Don't mind me asking, overall, financially, everything good and in order, or
yes.
Are there any stressors, or
Yes, yes, definitely. Okay. Well, financially, in some ways, better than ever. This job was 3 times what she was making with Jack.
Oh wow.
That's why I think she did $315 this year.
Oh, wow.
So that was huge for us. So that's why we decided to do the deal. But I've been having legal problems for many years now. It's one of the reasons why I couldn't leave, because I'm dealing with that now. And it was supposed to be done a long time ago, and it wasn't. So we've been really depressed about that. And there is restitution that I get to pay, but we have the money, and we're just waiting to get a final resolution. So the stress was being apart and not being the authors of our own lives. I couldn't move when we had to. And then our mothers had both of their health was difficult. So she had to go to Belgrade instead of coming here for 2 weeks.
Right.
And that was a hard hit. And then my mother, she needs a lot of assistance. She recently had cataracts, and she's had 3 cancer surgeries. So
I'm sorry.
she's doing well. So thank you.
Good.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But those were everything okay, Thomas? Okay. This is the whole time. But yes, the biggest stress was not being together. Before, when I was dealing with it, we were together. It was fine. It was one of those, we were a magnificent team. We were able to get through anything together. I was reading her a love note just the other day from 4 years ago about how we're able to blossom under such difficult circumstances. So.
This is a very rambling Rose, kind of wild, sprawling, and restless answer, and yet he doesn't quite answer the question. But if you listen closely, there's something in his answer that's curious, because he references being the author of his own destiny.
So the stress was being apart and not being the authors of our own lives. I couldn't move when we had to, and then.
That's the thing about long-term partners. Remember Anna's message on that champagne box.
We are still here and together. Let's make 2023 the best one yet. We are the authors of our lives. Courage, love, perseverance, compassion, and joy. Love, Anna.
This reference in the context of their marriage and the fact that he mentioned it here was a big red flag. One of the many stresses on the Walshes' marriage was that Anna couldn't be with her kids as she wanted to because her husband was under house arrest. He was only able to make limited court-approved trips related to the care of their sons. That's why he wasn't in a federal prison.
Is it okay if I ask about?
Please ask any questions you'd like.
The legal stress?
Absolutely, yeah. Do you have a specific question, or do you like
just a rundown of what?
Yeah, I just represented a Warhol piece. You could read about it in the papers.
You were an attorney, or what's your representation?
No, I
don't even know what you do. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I had some art, and I lost money on it, and I just represented it to another person in the gallery in LA.
Okay.
And then the FBI got involved, and I was arrested, and that occurred in 2018. So I've been dealing with that, and then I went to sentencing in October 8th of 2021, and everything was going to be fine.
Yep.
But the bank had called for the bank check, saying that some of the money had been returned, but none of the money that was in the bank check, and then things were postponed.
Okay.
And then things continue to be postponed, and that's, so I'm kind of locked down here at the house. Part of my sentence was home confinement, but it's gone over the 12 months because of things have not been resolved yet.
Okay.
And that's why I haven't been able to be in Massachusetts with, I'm sorry, in DC with my wife. She's been doing this, so.
Let me translate what was really going on. Brian knew how to appear posh. As the only child of a successful neurosurgeon, he had attended expensive boarding schools, but ultimately he would drop out of college because of depression, and after that sought mental health treatment throughout his life. Court documents allege that Brian Walshe was reportedly diagnosed as a sociopath. Throughout Brian's adult life, he was mostly jobless, but carried himself as if he was a successful businessman. Smoothing over the particulars with a curated charm, he portrayed himself as wealthy and well-connected, but in reality, he was a con artist and a sponge. Before he married Anna, he was living in a brownstone owned by his mother. He paid for his lavish lifestyle by borrowing money from friends and family, which he never paid back. This was something his father had learned the hard way. He lent Brian nearly $1 million for an investment and was never paid back. After that, his father cut him out of his will. Even so, when Thomas Walshe III died suddenly on a trip to India, his son Brian got himself appointed as his executor of his father's estate. And according to court documents, before any other family members and friends found out of his passing, Brian, his only son, had already liquidated $100,000 from his father's bank account and had also sold off expensive items from his father's home. But the court case Brian was referring to earlier, on the night he was being interviewed by police because his wife was missing, was related to another scheme. Brian conned a friend into entrusting him to sell 2 expensive Andy Warhol originals, which were from his Shadows series. Ultimately, Brian would sell these pieces, but he kept the money for himself and continued the con. He hired an artist to create replicas of these Andy Warhol paintings, and in 2015 sold these forgeries to a French art consultant who paid $145,000 for the pair. A year later, he listed a second set of forged Warhol paintings on eBay, which he sold to an art dealer in California for $80,000. But the dealer quickly realized that these paintings were fake and reported the scam to the feds. Brian was arrested and eventually pleaded guilty for the scam, but his sentencing was stalled for years. He preferred to be on house arrest. So Anna's reference to them being the author of their own lives, one could make the case that she was telling her husband to take responsibility for what he'd done. And she confided as much to her best friend on December 29th.
She was upset because she wanted him to take responsibility. She wanted their family together. She wanted that whole process to be over, and she wanted him to be responsible, be accountable, and do whatever he had to do to keep their family together.
And what did she mean? What did she tell you that she meant by the word responsibility?
Yeah, at that point in time, responsibility was potentially just taking jail time, admitting wrongdoing and just owning a mistake, and so that their family, that she would be waiting for them and that their family could be together.
Did she give you specifics of what she had told you about the amount of time?
I think it was all an estimate, but at the time she thought maybe a year.
Because Brian didn't take the prosecutor's deal, which meant continued separation from her children. Meantime, Brian was confined to the house and using his care of the children as a shield. Being on house arrest meant he wasn't in a federal prison. He continued to have court-approved appointments to leave the house to pick up the children and run household errands.
Just the other day, there was a possible resolution for the whole thing.
It's unclear exactly when Brian Walshe decided to murder his wife. But very early on, investigators believed it was sometime after Jem left their home at 1:30 in the morning on New Year's Day. And right away, he became a prime suspect. Because it didn't take long for them to realize that most of his story was a complete lie. On January 5th, the Cohasset Police Department held a press conference asking for help finding the missing mother, 39-year-old Anna Walshe.
Our Cohasset police detectives, along with detectives from the Massachusetts State Police, as well as detectives from the towns of Hingham, Hull, Norwell, and Situate. With that, I'll open it up to 20 questions.
Are there suspicious circumstances here that you're concerned about?
At this point, it's a missing person investigation. We're just trying to locate Anna and get her home safely. Whether, we have nothing to support anything suspicious or criminal. It was reported missing Wednesday. Simultaneously, we received simultaneous reports from her employer in Washington, D.C., as well as her husband, who lives here in Cohasset.
Was she supposed to get on a plane to go to Washington, D.C.? Was that why she would have left the house?
It was reported that she was that she took a ride share from her home in Cohasset to Logan Airport to board a plane to go to Reagan International Airport in D.C.
Investigators confirmed with Anna's work that there had been no emergency, and there was no record of Anna being picked up by an Uber or Lyft, and she hadn't taken a flight that morning either. And there was Brian's timeline, what he claimed to have done after Anna left that morning, which was essentially playing with the boys until around 3 p.m. Then a babysitter came over, and he went to the store to get OJ and milk. Around 4 o'clock, he drove to his mother's house, which was about an hour away, but he said it took him 90 minutes to get there because he didn't have his cell phone on him and got lost without GPS.
Music by
Then after he arrived at his mom's place, he said he went and ran errands for her at Whole Foods and CVS. He said that he didn't have the use of his cell phone until January 2nd because his son had taken it on New Year's Eve and inadvertently put it under a pillow, and so it took them a while to find it. Now, 2 days after Brian reported his wife missing, law enforcement undertook a massive search with canine officers in the woods behind the Walshes' home. While at the same time, investigators went to the Whole Foods and CVS where Brian said that he had ran errands for his mother, and they reviewed hours of surveillance footage, and they didn't see Brian at either of the stores that day. However, Brian was seen on footage at his mother's condo complex at a dumpster, struggling to throw away a heavy-looking plastic garbage bag. And on January 2nd, he had told investigators that he went to a coffee shop. But his ankle monitor told another story. Brian was captured on surveillance video at a Home Depot wearing a black surgical mask, blue surgical gloves, and that he made a cash purchase of $450 worth of cleaning products and other supplies. The next day, on January 3rd, Brian is clocked driving 16 miles away from his home, where he pulled into an apartment complex and was caught on video surveillance throwing away more garbage bags at another dumpster. Basically, Brian was making unapproved trips during the week of January 1st that he wasn't telling police about, which led to the conclusion that he'd purposely misled investigators. His actions delayed the investigation into his wife's disappearance because in a missing persons case, physical and video evidence has the chance of being lost or destroyed. On the 6th and 7th, police would search the Walshe property. In the basement, investigators found bloodstains and a bloody knife. On January 8th, 4 days after he reported Anna missing, Brian Walshe was arrested and charged with misleading a criminal investigation. He was held on a $500,000 bail.
Your Honor, the charge before the court right now, the defendant is charged
under the intimidation that being misleading the police in the course of an investigation. The investigation was into the missing person of Anna Walshe. Surveillance was checked by several police during this time frame. These statements caused a lot of delay as part of the investigation, as police now were focusing on the North Shore.
Now, roughly a week into the investigation, detectives spoke to Anna's close friend, William. Anna met William when he handled the purchase of her home in D.C., a $1.4 million property she had purchased on her own.
They were looking for a home in the D.C. area, and I assisted them in purchasing a townhome in Chevy Chase, D.C.
And did you know Anna or Brian Walshe before that?
I did not.
But after that transaction was complete in March of 2022, William and Anna continued the conversation.
What was your initial relationship?
We quickly became close friends, then confidants, and before long we started an intimate relationship.
William also told investigators that in the last few months, their relationship had gotten more serious.
When would you say that your relationship became more serious?
In the early to mid-summer, around July.
And how would you describe it?
Anna had traveled to Massachusetts for Brian's sentencing, and the expectation was that she was going to be able to bring the children and him back to Washington, D.C. following a favorable sentencing for his art fraud issues. And that sentencing was delayed.
At that point, were you seeing other people?
Prior to that, yes.
And at that point, did you stop seeing other people?
I did.
And did you begin spending holidays together?
Yes.
And did you spend Thanksgiving together of 2022?
We did.
And what plans did you and Anna have for Thanksgiving of 2022?
We had planned a trip to Dublin, Ireland together.
And when did you get to Dublin?
I believe we left on the 23rd or 24th of November.
Did you fly together to Dublin?
We did.
And how long were you in Dublin?
Until the 27th.
And then where did Anna go after Dublin?
She flew to Serbia to see her mother via Paris.
And where did you go after Dublin?
I returned to Washington.
And did you and Anna have plans for Christmas Eve?
Yes.
Did you and Anna discuss how Brian Walshe reacted to Anna not being in Cohasset on Christmas Eve and getting there later on Christmas Day?
She told me that they had an argument about it, and there were some points of contention.
Now, in Washington, D.C., William and Anna were open about their relationship with his friends, but Anna had kept their romance a secret from her circle, including her husband.
The biggest stressor was his inability to resolve his criminal case, and the fact that because of that, she couldn't be with her children and bring them back to Washington, D.C., and the fact that it felt like it was holding up her life.
William told investigators that his relationship with Anna was serious, and that she felt it was really important that when Brian was to find out about the relationship, that he would hear it from her. He said that she had expressed great concern, and he said that he thought that she felt it would be a strike against her integrity if he found out a different way. William and Anna had made plans to celebrate the new year on January 4th, after she returned from Massachusetts.
Plans were to have dinner on January 4th to celebrate New Year's and discuss our 1, 3, 5, and 10-year plans.
And what had you and Anna discussed about your future together?
We'd had a number of conversations about what a life together might look like, what merging two families would look like, how that might work. But I had always said to Anna that she needed to figure out how she wanted things to be with Brian and what she wanted to look like for her life before, we could make any sort of commitments or decisions.
And did you have dinner reservations for January 4th?
I did.
Did you have dinner on January 4th?
I did not.
What was the last contact that you had with Anna Walshe?
I received a text message from Anna. It was a Happy New Year's message right around the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, East Coast time.
But he never spoke to Anna again. However, on January 4th, Brian called William twice.
And then he called me on January 4th.
And did you answer that call?
I did not.
What did you do?
I pushed the call to my voicemail.
Why'd you do that?
I was in an intimate relationship with his wife. I had not heard from her in several days, and frankly, I was concerned that maybe he had found out and was calling to confront me.
Good afternoon, William. It's Brian Walshe. I hope all is going well. I was just reaching out to basically everybody I could. Anna hasn't been in touch for a few days. I spoke to work today. She hasn't been in. They went to the house and she wasn't there. It was like she's been there recently. So just wondering if you've spoken to her in the near, recently, like Sunday or the last 2 days. Just so let me know, or if you know anyone that might have that contact with her, calling everyone. So sorry to bother you. Sure, everything's fine, and you can reach me at 617-929-8646. Thanks.
On January 17th, Brian Walshe was formally charged with Anna's murder.
Police developed probable cause to believe that her husband, Brian Walshe, age 47, had misled police investigators on material matters important to the search for Anna Walshe. He has pled not guilty to those charges and is currently being held at the Norfolk County House of Correction. The continued investigation has now allowed police to obtain an arrest warrant charging Brian Walshe with the murder of his wife.
Brian Walshe pleaded not guilty. But in a court hearing, some extremely damning evidence from Brian Walsh's Google history was revealed. Early in the morning on New Year's Day, Brian's searches laid out a grisly timeline.
At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. At 6:25 a.m. on the 1st, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. At 6:34 a.m. on the 1st, can you throw away body parts?
The following day, January 2nd, more frantic and frenzied searches that are sequential and very damning.
There were also more Google searches on January 2nd. At 12:45 p.m., hacksaw best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged with murder without a body? At 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body with broken teeth?
As Brian Walshe awaited trial for the murder of his wife, in February 2024, his art fraud case was finally adjudicated. He was sentenced to 37 months in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and was ordered to pay restitution of $475,000. But in a stunning about-face, on November 18th, 2025, just before his murder trial was about to begin, Brian Walshe pleaded guilty to 2 of the 3 charges related to his wife's murder. He admitted to dismembering and disposing of his wife's body, and that he'd misled the police.
Mr. Walshe, do you wish to offer a change of plea on docket number 2382CR91002, which charges you with intimidation of a witness, juror, police, or court official, and 003, disinterment of a body? Do you wish to offer a change of plea from not guilty to guilty?
I do.
But he maintained that he didn't murder his wife. The prosecution theorized that Brian had murdered his wife, Anna, in the early morning hours on New Year's Day, 2023. He then went about searching the internet for how to dismember and dispose of her body, which he carried out, while at the same time scheming about how he was going to get away with murder and cashing in on her life insurance policy of $2.7 million. In the course of the investigation, Anna's body had never been recovered, but the prosecution believed that Brian Walshe disposed of Anna's remains on the south shore of Massachusetts. Remember, they had him on video trying to throw away all those garbage bags, but unfortunately, by the time investigators got surveillance footage of him throwing away those heavy bags at that apartment complex, 16 miles away from his home, that container had been emptied and the contents within were either shredded or incinerated on January 8th. But near Brian's mother's apartment complex, where that surveillance footage had captured him throwing away heavy-looking trash bags, they were able to retrieve 10 of them, and they contained the tools he used to dismember Anna's body. A hacksaw with a piece of bone that tested positive for Anna's DNA, a hatchet, and other cutting tools stained with blood. They also found Anna's DNA on other items, blood-stained rugs, a clump of hair, and Brian's DNA was also found on some of these items, including a Tyvek suit. Now, if you've never heard of a Tyvek suit, it's the kind CSI wear when they are processing a crime scene.
5-gallon buckets, a Lennox high-tension hacksaw, 48 terry cloth towels, a framing hammer, Tyvek full-coverage suit, shoe guards, mop, snips, 200 disposable rags, trash bags, Murphy oil soap, and other cleaning products. It then travels to CVS in Danvers, where Mr. Walsh is again seen on video by himself purchasing 13 different types of hydrogen peroxide. It then travels to Stop and Shop in Swampscott, where Mr. Walsh can be seen buying 3 64-ounce jugs of ammonia. From 2 a.m. to approximately 5:30 a.m., the oldest child's iPad searched and visited websites concerning instructions on how to clean blood and DNA from objects, how to remove SIM cards from phones, how to mix ammonia, and search for apartment complex in Brockton, Massachusetts. At 8 a.m., the babysitter returned to the Walsh residence. Mr. Walsh left the residence that morning and is on surveillance at Home Goods in Norwell, purchasing 3 area rugs and scented candles. The babysitter would state that by the end of the week, she had noticed that the downstairs area rugs had been replaced, as well as a kitchen trash can. On the afternoon of the 3rd, Mr. Walsh visited 3 different apartment complexes in Abington and 1 in Brockton. Video from these complexes captured Mr. Walsh in the area of the dumpsters for 3 of these complexes. One video showed him looking into a dumpster and not putting anything into it. A second captures him taking items from his SUV by the area of the dumpster. And then the third depicts Mr. Walsh depositing a bag that appears to be heavy into the dumpster.
Not only did the prosecution suggest that Brian's motive for murdering Anna was for her life insurance, but also that he knew about her affair with William. There was evidence on his device that he'd tracked Anna's flights. Remember that Thanksgiving she spent with William in Dublin, and then that Christmas Eve when she didn't come home. He knew he was losing control over Anna. She was moving on with her life, and his illusion of success had lost its luster. He wasn't fooling anyone anymore. He'd been exposed as a con artist and a deadbeat. And Anna had grown tired of her husband's constant calls, his self-pitying depression, and their loveless marriage.
She told me that, aside from everything being really difficult, that they had not been intimate in a really long time, like maybe over a year.
And what did she tell you as to why?
She said it was because that Brian had been really depressed and that the strain of the case had really just taken a toll on his mental health and their marriage, and that she felt also that that her energy was being really drained.
Was she specific about what she meant by her energy being drained?
Yeah, at that time, she was saying that Brian was calling her several times a day, that she felt physically and emotionally exhausted traveling back and forth from DC to Massachusetts. It was just a lot on her body, mind, soul, and spirit, and that also just like emotionally feeling like she had to be the strong one was very draining for her.
During the trial, it was revealed that days before the death of his wife, Brian Walsh allegedly watched a porn video that, according to testimony from Massachusetts State Trooper Nicholas Guarino, the storyline of this pornographic video was about a cuckolded husband.
What's the entire title of the cheating wife reference?
Cheating wife seduces another man to impregnate her. Scarlet Scandal, Seth Gamble, Erotica X, Pornhub.com.
Do you have any idea how that particular porn movie, whatever it is, do you know how it came about?
The only thing I say is that Pornhub was viewed and that video was selected.
Brian's defense argued that on the morning of January 1st, he had discovered his wife's body in bed. He claimed that she had died from a sudden, unexplained death, and that he disposed of her body because he feared no one would believe he wasn't responsible, and he worried that his 3 children would be taken away. Well, at the same time, the defense made their case that there wasn't a body, which meant the prosecution had no direct evidence to support a murder charge because there was no way to determine cause or manner of death.
Sudden and unexpected death may occur because someone is ill. All we know is that it happens. And the fact that someone doesn't believe it could happen doesn't mean that it doesn't. Importantly, though, think about the shock of it happening. Think about the effect it would have on anyone.
Brian Walshe wouldn't testify at his trial, and the defense didn't call a single witness. In December of 2025, Brian Walshe was convicted of the first-degree murder of his wife, Anna Walshe. Before his sentencing, Anna's sister spoke. Here's Anna's sister giving a victim impact statement before his sentencing.
Anna was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life was unfairly taken. We asked the court to consider the permanent, long-lasting impact this loss has had on our family. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share the full weight of this incomprehensible act. Anna will never be forgotten. We will carry her light and her memory with us forever.
Brian Walshe was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
As to the nature and circumstances of count 3, the improper disposal of Anna Walshe's body, the seriousness of your acts cannot be overstated. Your acts in dismembering your wife's body and disposing of her remains in multiple area dumpsters can only be described as barbaric and incomprehensible. You had no regard for the lifelong mental harm that your criminal acts inflicted on your then 2, 4, and 6-year-old sons, not only in taking their mother, but also, as is specific to this charge, in never being able to properly grieve that loss, to say goodbye to their mom.
Up next, criminal mischief bonus content. Here, my co-host Brandon Morgan and I discuss the case in more detail. And as always, thanks for listening.